undercover warfare and diabolical obsession. When evening came, they brought to him many who were possessed with devils, and he drove out the spirits with a word, and healed all that were sick. Matthew 8, verse 16.
Der Mensch an sich ist gut.
A human being in itself is good, creative, lovable. The fact that humans can come under diabolical possession has been attested by all religions of all times. But even medicine, psychology, science, education, etc. have long since had to surrender and admit that the most inexplicable things on this earth can only be explained through diabolical possession. According to the Gospels, a third of the ministry of Jesus Christ consisted in exorcising demons. What are the typical characteristics of diabolically possessed? Any reasonable communication with them is completely impossible from the outset. They don't know sympathy, mercy, understanding, or remorse. Neither logic nor truth can be found in them. Possessed are fixed solely and only on their own drives, cravings, interests, lusts, addictions, etc. There are many types of obsession, from impurities to bloody excesses, all kinds of maliciousness to murderous, tormenting addictions, from pedophilia to cannibalism, from kleptomania to plundering of whole peoples, from notorious contentiousness to vandalistic rage, from bossiness to dictatorial opinion forcing, from the habit of lying to permanent professional fraud of all kinds, etc., etc. The problems they cause are countless. How do you explain, for example, to a small child that its parents are diabolically possessed? The same question, unfortunately, has to be raised also on the national level. How do you explain this to unsuspecting peoples whose governments have fallen under the spell of diabolically possessed, or are of this sort themselves? Smelling religious extremism here prematurely is an error. Sadly enough, it's exactly this tragedy that has become a major problem for the global community. Like little children, we do not want to hear what has to be said clearly. All you peoples, take notice that diabolically possessed are waging a hybrid, an undercover war against the whole of humanity. Driven by satanic mania, they think they have to subdue and dominate the whole world. We must not continue to confuse the absence of bombs with the absence of war. Because for years such maniac elite have been pushing this new form of war. Without a doubt it can be described as World War III, on a hybrid, on a more manifold level, and especially on a covert, hidden level. Their goal, a new world order, totally under their control. Their hybrid warfare creates more damage on all levels and demands more human lives than any previous war waged with conventional weapons. The good news is, as there always has been a way to ban the impact of diabolic powers, there is also now a way on a higher level. Jesus was permanently occupied by disempowering the influence of demonic beings. So there is also a way out from under the power of today's possessed elite. But more about this in our conclusion.
First, demography.
Like in every war, also in hybrid warfare, the psychological destruction of the target is the main goal. In demographic terms, its destruction is induced beforehand through psychological social measures, like attacking traditional role models, through weakening the institution of marriage, through more and more diverse types of contraception, through the promotion of abortion, now even after birth, and much more. The social decline is assured even more effectively by these interventions than by any conventional bomb war. Millions of potential enemies are not even born.
Second, nations.
For the purpose of their new world order, hybrid war warmongers deliberately advanced the destruction of all existing countries. Once again, refugee waves are used as migrational weapons. By the way, this is not only an old, well-known, but also a very effective method used by militaries and geostrategists. The causes for migration waves lie in deliberately waged wars, conflicts and revolutions. This is a hybrid warfare attack on our social systems with the goal to destabilize all nations and to replace them with the establishment of one socialistic social system.
Third, technologies.
The world's leading scientists have developed technologies for these warmongers, which enable them to steer all of humanity at random, to make them sick whenever they want, and also kill them. Atomic bombs, deadly viruses as biological combat weapon, genetic engineering, surveillance gadgets at every corner and in space, and thousands of other technologies belong to their standard equipment.
Fourth, health.
Hybrid warfare also aims at health. Almost all originally natural healing methods have long since been replaced through chemical medicinal treatment. Should all nations increasingly be controlled, arbitrarily be restricted, have bans introduced on them, be completely plundered and systematically ruined under the stranglehold of the pharmaceutical industry? It is about time that all these machinations be thoroughly looked into to check whether or not there are hybrid warmongers hidden behind the imposed preventive health measures. The pharmaceutical industry earns billions of dollars daily with our illnesses. Even though their products have long been exposed as the main cause of almost all of our health issues, their networks to several big powers is so diabolically rigid that so far no changes have come into effect.
Fifth, impoverishment and enslavement.
Hybrid war tactics are currently specifically destroying our economy all over the world, with the aim of completely looting, impoverishing, and enslaving all peoples. To only name 2 hybrid chess moves of 1,000 similar ones, high finance, namely the Fed, which is empowered to forge money, has been hogging billions of profits on a daily basis for more than 100 years without returning any value. Through more and more diabolical derivatives, which means financial bets and stock market tricks, the money elite, who are closely intertwined with the Fed, are mercilessly plundering all nations, driving them into ruin, impoverishing them, even into total enslavement. Does the current corona pandemic maybe even have to serve as a purposeful cover-up for this worldwide financial collapse, a collapse caused by extreme criminal financial betting? The blame for the total economic collapse could very well be shifted onto the coronavirus this way.
Sixth, mass media.
For decades, steered by dark powers, the mass media has been lying to the world's community so that by now almost every second person agrees with the opinion that the press does not report the truth. How is it at the same time possible that still nothing ever changes? Do such strong entanglements with diabolic behind-the-scene powers exist that no independent government of this world dares to rise against it?
Seventh, education.
Another hybrid attack is aimed at our education. Is a total breakdown of our educational systems the goal? For example, through uncontrolled migration, or by increasing artificial intelligence on the way to digitalization. Those empowered in the educational system have at least started to force our children worldwide into early sexualization, into gender mania, and lots of other agendas. If some superordinate powers should one day unplug the world's internet plug, wouldn't most people be helplessly lost? Due to all this, the decay of education is approaching at high speed. The future lack of reliable labor forces is foreseeable. Is the total collapse of infrastructure and economy program? The UN and their dependent politicians are already advancing diverse sabotage-like measures and laws.
Eighth, economy.
Our whole economy, too, stands in the crossfire of this new kind of undercover warfare. Have the saboteurs, in the disguise of environmental protection and reducing CO2, deliberately aimed at our whole production and consumption? The current climate hysteria, with groups like Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion, was planned not less than a long time before. As early as 2016, the theoretical strategy paper, Leading the Public into Emergency Mode, was published from the Ivory Tower. The Climate Mobilization, an American group behind the strategy paper, promotes the total mobilization of the entire society to fight alleged man-made climate change. Through these groups, the USA is again dictating the role model. All of society is meant to sacrifice their individual needs for the great goal of the new world order under the pretext of climate saving.
9th, energy supply.
Also, our energy supply is in the crossfire of hybrid warmongers. Germany and Western Europe are just now losing their energy sovereignty by giving up their nuclear and coal industries. The highly praised renewable but inefficient energies at the same time lead directly into total dependence on energy imports.
10th, food supply.
Undercover warfare does not even halt in front of our food supply. Agricultural production is being more and more restricted by regulations and requirements. The consequences of this are farms dying out and a sinking rate of food production.
We could go on and on with a list like this. Hybrid warfare against our traffic planning and infrastructures, against nature and weather, against all conservative trends in politics, against every religion except for Satanism, the attack on our health through a nationwide expansion of the mobile communications network, which will even be enforced drastically with 5G and have fatal consequences for flora and fauna, and so on and so on. In regard to all these targets of attack, one has to note, in summary, that they are systematically putting into practice the advice of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was a Chinese war strategist in ancient times, who as early as 500 BC wrote,
Supreme excellence consists in breaking the resistance of the enemy without fighting, subvert anything of value in the enemy's country, implicate the emissaries of the major powers in criminal undertakings, spread disunity and dispute among the citizens, turn the young against the old, use every means to destroy their arms, their supplies, and the discipline of the enemy's forces, debase old traditions and accepted gods.
In closing, let's look at the question of how the people can be freed from the stranglehold of their possessed attackers. The secret of a successful exorcist is, as we know, his steeled and unshakable will. When he directs his will, aiming against persistent demons, and commands them to come out of the possessed, he spiritually produces a blazing fire, and the demons have to flee in panic. Exactly the same thing will happen as soon as the people which are tormented by hybrid war see through the diabolic game and by the strength of their united will put an end to all diabolic works, and by this the powers behind them. The synergic determination of the people will wind that steel chain around the devil that was already prophetically illustrated 2,000 years ago. The book of Revelation, chapter 20, expresses the disempowerment of the root of all evil with the following illustration.
And I saw an angel coming down from heaven with the key to the abyss, holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and he threw him into the abyss, shut it and sealed it over him, so that he could not deceive the nations any longer.
Maltreated humanity should not passively wait until some angel comes down from heaven and does this job for them. The awakened peoples themselves are meant by this chain. The angel, literally meaning someone sent, only symbolizes our age of overcoming the invincible. The upright peoples are supposed to become this insurmountable chain themselves, oneness on all sides in the face of hybrid warfaring villains. They become this chain whenever they are thoroughly informed about the hybrid tragedy. Increasingly, they set out against these evil works and powers with a united will of steel. This way, they inevitably deprive the warmongers of any diabolically sponsored energy, any externally bestowed courage, any satanic fantasy and visualization power. This way, those who were invincible before inexorably enter mental, shock-induced paralysis. They are plunged into fear and horror overnight, into despondency and impotence. The united willpower of the peoples and their synergic call for the good can and will end all of the haunting named here. Spread this information wherever you can.